I don't know if you are familiar with the word xenophobia. Maraming klaseng phobia, but one of them is xenophobia. It is one of the most common causes of social conflicts and wars sa buong mundo. Xenophobia means fear of strangers, takot sa mga dayuhan. Kahit wala namang ginagawang masama, ay pinag-iisipan na kagad ng masama. You know, the migrants are bound to be treated with suspicion by the locals. They'd say, who knows what their purpose might be? They can be thieves or spies or criminals or drug traders. These are just among the common and often unsaid or unexpressed fears of locals with regard to strangers, mga dayo. Kahit naman tayo, di ba, maliliit pa tayo, pinagsabihan din siguro kayo, Anak, don't talk to strangers, di ba? Don't talk to strangers. Tapos ang panakot pa sa atin, unless gusto mong makidnap. Well, our gospel today is about the xenophobia of the Samaritans towards the Jews and of the Jews towards the Samaritans. There was a mutual hostility between them. Ayaw silang papasukin. Nakikiraan lang naman. Unfortunately, if you're coming from Galilee and going down to Judea, talagang ang shortcut is Samaria. Dadaan ka sa Samaritan province. Pero, nung malaman nila that they were on their way to Jerusalem, the temple, the holy mountain called Mount Zion, ayaw silang padaanin. Because for the Samaritan people, the holy mountain is Mount Gerizim. Actually, you know, the Samaritans and the Jews used to be part of one nation before the kingdom of David was split up, divided into two kingdoms. Kaya, originally, they were not really aliens to each other. Pero sa katagalan ng panahon, you know, they started to develop feelings of mutual contempt sa isa't isa. You see, even people of the same race or people of the same religion can alienate each other. You remember, merong isang eksenang ganyan in the Gospel of John about the encounter between Jesus and that Samaritan woman by the well. John tells us na nung lumapit si Jesus, nakikiinom, abay tinarayan siya nung Samaritana. Remember what she said? Bakit ka makikiinom sa akin? How can you, a Jew, ask me, a Samaritan, and a woman at that, for a drink? She would be more precise later on when, you know, in the course of the conversation, sasabihin niya directly, wala ka namang timba. You do not even have a bucket, and that well is deep. So how will you get water? And the evangelist is telling us, at the end of verse 9, na yung mga Hudyo daw at Samaritano, they would never use the same things or they would never use, you know, in common any item or object. Kung hinawakan ng Hudyo, hindi pwedeng hawakan ng Samaritano because they treat each other as unclean people. Now we talk about our dear first saint and martyr in the Philippines, San Lorenzo Ruiz, whose feast we celebrate today. Alam nyo, nung napadpad si San Lorenzo sa Japan, well, actually, bago siya mapadpad sa Japan, Japan used to be a very open country, welcoming to foreigners, open to doing commerce or trade or exchange of cultures and ideas with foreigners. Nagbago yun. At tumama pa yung pagbabago when Lorenzo, joined this group of missionaries whose destination was Japan. Noong early 17th century, naging makapangyarihan yung Tokugawa dynasty that was so anti-foreigner. So when Lorenzo joined that group of Spanish missionaries, on arriving in Japan, na-shock sila to find out that the Tokugawa dynasty had, adopted an anti-alien policy, and they were arresting and torturing and executing most of the foreigners, especially missionaries. But not only the foreign missionaries, they were also arresting the local Japanese who had converted to Christianity because Christianity was considered as an alien faith. And that was a crime for them. Kawawang Lorenzo. Actually, he was just escaping from arrest himself. He ran away because he was afraid that he would be executed dahil naakusahan siya. He was accused of a crime he did not commit. Pero pagdating niya ng Japan, he was arrested and tortured and put to death like a criminal. It's like leaving the mouth of a tiger only to land in the mouth of a lion. Pero despite the circumstances, Lorenzo did not regard himself as just a victim of circumstances. He willed his fate, and he chose to die a martyr's death rather than renounce his faith. And of course, naging sikat yung kanyang testimony of faith. Remember the famous line Lorenzo said, "I am a Christian. If I had 1,000 lives, I would not mind offering each one of them for the Lord." Sa Tagalog, meron tayong expression for people whom we regard as aliens or foreigners or strangers. Ang tawag natin, ibang tao, other people. And it takes a while before we begin to treat strangers as hindi na iba. No longer other, no longer alien. Dito sa atin, even if we're all Filipinos, we're made up of a multiplicity of ethnic groups. May Bisaya, may Kapampangan, may Ilocano, may Ilonggo, may Cebuano, Ang dami nating mga ethnic groups. And you know that a lot of people in Metro Manila are not natives of Manila. I don't know how many of you are really natives of this place. Majority of the Manilans now are migrants. Mga dayo, galing sa iba't ibang mga probinsya na padpad sa Metro Manila. And I am sure they also suffered a long period of alienation before they got integrated among the locals na parang hindi na iba. Well, in the time of Lorenzo, and we're talking about the 17th century, imagine how long ago this is. 1636, The Chinese people during the colonial period were alienated. They were not allowed to mingle with the natives or the Spaniards. They lived in isolated villages that were called pa riyan. Why? Because both the Spaniards and the natives treated them as aliens. Ang problema, Lorenzo was neither Chinese nor native. He was half Chinese, half native. In short, mestizo. And ayun yung mas masaklap. He was what you might call a double alien. A double alien. Dahil hindi siya full Chinese at hindi fully native, he was alienated from both sides. Sa panahon natin ngayon, when you say mestizo, hinahangaan ng mestizo. Tisay yan, mestisuhin, pang beauty queen, mga ganon. Not in the time of the colonial period. Ang mestizo is not pure-blooded. They were looked down upon. People of mixed blood were treated with contempt. And it was these people who were bound to be more easily accused of crimes they had not committed. Kaya, kapag may krimen, sinong unang pagbibintangan? The foreigner, the stranger, the alien. Dayo yan eh. Well, we'll know we're celebrating in 2021 the 500th year of Christianity. And it's good to reflect on the circumstances that motivated our native ancestors to open their doors to an alien faith. Bakit kaya? Why were they motivated to welcome these people? Sa totoo lang, sigurado ako, takot din sila. On both sides. I am sure the Spaniards were also afraid of the natives, just as the natives were afraid of the Spaniards. A mutual distrust. At itong Spaniards na ito, dumaan na ito ng Africa, Latin America, and sa Marianas. Were they welcomed? Well, inulan sila ng mga pana, mga sibat. Kaya they were afraid when they entered Samar. Unfortunately, wala na silang pagkain, wala nang inumin. Ang layo ng nilakbay, maraming may sakit, maraming namatay sa kanila. They were 5 ships, 3 lang ang dumating. Ang isa lumubog, ang isa bumalik, umatras. In short, mga dayo sila, nakikipanuluyan. They needed help. Pero takot din sila. That's why they were holding on to their weapons. Mga sandata. They had guns and cannons and swords with them. Sabi nung chronicler, si Pigafetta, nung lumapit daw yung mga bangka with the natives who were observing them, they were afraid. Their reflex reaction was to hold their guns, But Magellan said, no. Put down your sword. Put down your guns. And pinatuloy sila sa galleon. And they got an interpreter to communicate with them. And somehow they were able to communicate that they did not mean harm. Dumadaan lang sila. They were just passing through. They were in need of food and drink, and they were willing to pay to buy the food and drink. They needed to take care of their sick and to bury their companions who had died. That was all it took. Sa Tagalog, kasabihan, kung dayo ka, ibig mong makipanuluyan, di kumatok ka lang at magpakatao ka. Matutong makipagkapwa-tao. Baka sakali, they will open their door to you. Kaya, di ba, pagkatok natin, tao po. Because we're not sure if this guy, who's a stranger, ay ugaling tao. So, behave and communicate like a proper human being. And you'll see you'll be treated like one. It took only a few little gestures. Aba, to their great surprise, mabait din pala itong mga natives na ito. The natives, they gave them food and drink. They opened their houses to them. They helped them take care of the sick. They helped them bury their dead. At alam nila yung difference between a gift and a merchandise. Soon, they became friends. A very short time, they developed a friendship. And nag-blood compact pa sila. And, they had themselves baptized. I'm sure they didn't even understand baptism. Palagay ko ang tingin nila sa baptism, parang covenants, sealing of friendship. Kaya, they were amazed. Si Magellan, he thought he was bringing God to them, only to discover God already present among our natives here in this country. Well, I think this is the reason why Jesus was trying to teach his disciples how to treat the Samaritans, not to react, not to return hostility for hostility. We will never be treated well by these people if we just return hostility for hostility, sabi ni Jesus. Kaya sabi niya, ayaw tayong padaanin, di wag. Maghanap tayo ng ibang daan. Wag makikipag-away. Kaya look what happened later on. One little conversation, it changed their minds. And pretty soon, not only were they welcome, the woman became an apostle to the Samaritans. Well, on this feast day of San Lorenzo, we honor our OFWs. And I offer this Mass for them. They are turning into the modern missionaries. Parang si San Lorenzo, an accidental missionary. I'm sure mga kababayan nating OFWs, they have also suffered a lot of hostility, discrimination, racism. But through time, nakikipagkaibigan. They managed to communicate and feel at home in their host countries and work with them and work for them. And then, before you know it, they are evangelizing. Not even consciously. Without even the intention of evangelizing, by just living in peace and harmony with their host country, they are able to give witness to their faith. Kaya si Pope Francis nagpatawa siya. He said, the OFWs, they are smugglers. Smugglers of faith. Ang sabi niya, mga smuggler daw tayo ng pananampalataya. Because nothing could prevent us from living out our faith, even in countries where Christians are not even welcome. Dami ko na nakilalang Pinoy, nanirahan sa Muslim countries. So what if they're Muslims? They treat them like brothers and sisters. And before you know it, these Muslim families are so in love with their Filipino domestics. Well, siguro yun ang reason. Bakit ang theme natin, gifted to give? We treat the good news as a gift, but it should not end there. Mission begins when we share what we have received. The ones who have been blessed now must become a blessing to others. And this is how we grow from being mere followers to becoming participants in the mission of Christ because we have welcomed Him into our lives.